Captivate 2012, here with Kobayashi-san and Sasaki-san to talk about Resident Evil 6. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hi.
And first of all, the release date, we've just learned, has been brought slightly earlier. When's the new release date and why is it earlier now?
Okay, the game will be coming out on October 2nd on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but why did we decide to move it up is because when we announced the game in January, there was a really good reaction from all the fans out there, and basically it was overwhelming. They said, why can't you get this into our hands sooner? So I went back and talked to the dev team and tried to negotiate with them, and I was able to cut about a month and a half off, so we were able to move it up to October.
Okay, how did the dev team feel about having a month less to work on the game?
Heavy pressure.
I'm the type of person that I don't think I really work with pressure. I think I'm a creative type, so I just go about creating the things I want, and I don't pay attention to things that are supposed to put pressure on me when I'm creating. But when you start bringing in release dates, that's the one thing that kind of puts pressure on me. So it was kind of a shock at first, but the team themselves, they have faith in this game, and they really want to get in the hands of the fans as soon as possible because they're really proud of the work they've done. So in terms of, there was a bit of pressure that we felt, but at the same time, the team got really gung-ho behind the idea because they're like, wow, we can get this game out sooner into the hands of everyone. So come on, let's just get together and do this.
Yeah, this is Raccoon City all over again.
We've had a lot of reveals just now, a lot of revelations about who everyone is. Most of all, the third protagonist. So we've got Leon, we've got Chris, and now we've got Jake. Can you tell us about Jake, please?
Okay, so the new character for this game is Jake Mueller, and as it turns out, he's Albert Wesker's son. Jake never knew his father growing up. Wesker abandoned his family, so it was just Jake and his mom growing up. Jake didn't really have an easy life growing up, and in order to support his mother and himself, he decided to become a mercenary. So he's a mercenary fighting in a war that he doesn't really believe in, but he's doing it just for the sake of money to help his family. But in the midst of all that, he encounters Sherry Birkin, who we know from Resident Evil 2. Sherry Birkin is now an agent working for the US government, and she comes to him with this mission. And Sherry represents something, kind of an ideal that Jake has. She's very compassionate, something that Jake doesn't have. I mean, he's a mercenary. He doesn't care about other people. He just does what he does for himself.
All right, first things first. Only 200,000 up front. Another 200 when this is over. Oh, BOWs, those are extra.
Sherry is the opposite of that. And I think you're going to see in this Jake's story, and one of the key elements of it is Jake evolving as a human being and opening up, and how Sherry's interactions with him affect him.
So Sherry is also the co-op partner for that particular character, for Jake. And each of the protagonists has their own co-op partner. There's Helena for Leon, and for Chris there's Piers. Tell us about the co-op. Is it just going to resemble that from Resi 5?
All the good stuff that you had about co-op in 5 will be in 6, but we wanted to make some modifications to it. One thing you couldn't do in 5 was drop in and out. So when you're playing online in 5, you had to return back to a certain checkpoint so you could play with someone else. This time in 6, we tried to make that as seamless as possible so you can just drop in and out at any point. And also, because this is RE6, we want to do something new. So there's something else related to the co-op feature in the game that I can't talk about yet. But as we get closer to the release date, it'll be a special announcement, and I think fans will be pretty excited by it.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that announcement. Earlier you said you can play the 3 characters in the order you choose, but you would prefer people to play as Leon first. Is that right?
As I said, you can play as any of them that you want from the start. So if you really like Chris a lot, you can start with Chris's story, and that's no problem. But I think for Resident Evil 6, Leon is really the focus of the game. So if you start with Leon, I think it's more of an enriching experience. But you don't have to start, if I can stress that. You can choose any of the characters.
You've mentioned horror entertainment as the flavor of the horror in Resident Evil 6. Can you expand on that?
Entertainment is a concept everyone can get behind, whether it's a deep and resonating story or just the action you incorporate into the game itself. Just by the very fact that it's a game, it has to be entertaining. So we want to not just be horror, something that feels like it's limited as a genre, but entertainment, something that opens it up to all of the players. I think one of the things you got to remember with Resident Evil, while horror has always been a key element of it, when you think back about the Resident Evil series, it's not just the horror, but it's about the protagonist. And it's almost, in a way, kind of like a hero's journey. It's how do these people survive when they're faced with extreme conditions? I mean, they're put in situations that normal people don't have to deal with, and they have to overcome a lot. So that's really really, in a nutshell, what Resident Evil has been about through all its iterations. And so we want to make sure that we kept those elements in the game.
I know our users will be very interested in the all-new controls. Can you describe them for us?
For this game, we wanted to try and create a new type of control scheme, something that's more in line with the trends of what you've seen in action games of late. And so we've looked at those trends and we wanted to incorporate some of that into RE6. For example, now you'll be able to walk and shoot, you'll be able to jump out of the way and dodge enemy attacks, you can fall down on your back and try and crawl backwards as you shoot at enemies. So there's all these different things that you're able to do. Now, we didn't want to do just new actions for the sake of having new controls in the game. We wanted to make it integral to the game and the story we're trying to tell. So these new types of actions give birth to new types of situations. Things we couldn't do before in terms of story or in terms of horror elements, we're now able to do because of these new actions. So they're not actions for the sake of actions, they're actions for the sake of furthering the story, adding to the horror, the survival horror in the game. For example, if I may, when you're on your back and you're shooting at zombies, that might be easy, kind of like shooting fish in a barrel for a second, but we've added it so zombies will jump on top of you, and then you're struggling with them and trying to break free, and then at the very last minute you're able to get your gun up and shoot them off of you. That's the type of stuff we want to do. So new controls, I think, make the game easier to play, and it's easier and more intuitive for the players themselves, but you can't have that without increasing the tension and opening up the story as well.
What are you going to do?
We're going to China.
Let's talk about locations. You've got an American location, Eastern European, and China. How do they fit together, and what proportion of the game is spent in which part?
We want to start the three characters out in different situations. So since we have three characters and three stories, we have three different stages for them to start out at. So that gives us America, Eastern Europe, and China. And in the end, they're all going to come together, and China is going to be the main place for all of this action. So I think China takes up a good portion of the game as in terms of the setting for it. And for us, we thought, well, China on its own is a unique country and a unique environment. What if we were to take the Resident Evil world and add it to that? What kinds of things would be born out of that melding of the two worlds? And I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to go with China, just because it gives so many possibilities and it really is visually interesting.
It's very exciting. Kobayashi-san, Sasaki-san, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Put your gun down, Chris. She's a key witness. We need her.
A witness? She's the one who did all this!
Resident